Well, this is Minnesota River Valley Master Gardener Barb Lamson, and with me today is my husband,
Dave Lamson.
And we're going to share with you a pond that we built ourselves in the backyard this summer. So I hope you like it as much as we do. The first thing we did was to find the right location. You should build a pond where you can enjoy it. There's no sense putting it in your front yard or someplace where you're never going to see it. And here, it's right next to our three-season porch, and we can sit in there and we can hear the water falling. It's so comforting. As a matter of fact, I've fallen asleep with that.
Yes, you have.
David, you did all the work. You're the engineer on this project.
Well, when we started, we had a formed pond that we'd put in about 20 years ago,
Right.
And it developed a leak. So we decided to make a pond larger than what the original one was. And to lay out the design for it, we just took a piece of rope and made a rough design on it, and then I started digging.
Yes.
And I probably hauled out about 25 to 30 wheelbarrows full of dirt.
And it rained. And
it rained. We had a 1 week where we really didn't do anything.
Right.
And so the pond is about 2 feet deep on the back side by where the pump is at.
Sure.
And it goes gradually up to about 18 inches on this end. And then I put a shelf in that's only about 6 or 8 inches below the surface that we're probably going to set plants on. Water
plants. And what's important to understand about the pond being deeper at one end than the other end is because in the spring we'll pump it out and we'll clean it, and then all the water runs down there and you can easily get it out.
Right.
And we're going to use some kind of power equipment to do that.
Yeah, we have a skimmer pump that I use to pump out the pond that I used on the other pond, and it'll work fine on this pond.
And then this water will be pumped right into the garden here.
And onto the garden.
So that's an advantage too. And let's talk about the membrane that we bought. And the first pond, like you said, was a preformed
pond, which, you know, if you want to go a cheap, easy route, a preformed pond is probably the way to go. If you want to go to more of a freeform, larger pond, you almost need to do a membrane. And this was the membrane, the size of the membrane that we bought was 10 by 15.
And it's got a 20-year warranty. So if you're going to spend money on the pond, this would be the thing to spend it on, getting the very best membrane. And then it looks like...
This is the membrane, and it's fairly thick. I don't know if you can tell how thick it is on the video or not, but and it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So it's like with a 20-year warranty, it needs to be something so that it's going to last.
And hey, what's really great about this is you also get a patching kit if you would ever have a problem, like if a root would come up or you'd step in there with a shoe and make a hole in it, you can
patch it. And this is has a backing on it, and this goes against it, and it's very sticky. And you're supposed to let this set for 24 hours before you fill it back up with water after you put a patch on.
So that's a great idea.
Another thing with getting back to the basic construction of it, you want to make sure that it's doesn't have any tree roots or anything in the bottom, so that your chances of something puncturing the liner would be minimal. And also they recommend that you line this with a liner of some sort first. And so this was just some carpeting that we happened to be driving around one evening and saw somebody had a bunch of carpeting laying out on their driveway, and stopped and asked them if we could take some of it, because we knew that they were going to throw it away, and they were happy to get rid of it.
We felt sorry for them because we'd had 8 inches of rain, and so this carpet was new, and these poor people had to take this out of their basement. But this lines the entire floor of the pond as well as the sides, because the membrane is going to go up on the sides, and then also when you put the rock to hold it in place, you want to have this there so that it has a nice surface so it doesn't get punctured there either.
Right. And when you start filling the pond, it's best if you can be in the pond, and so you can pull out some of the wrinkles.
Right.
Because you're going to have pleats in it because of going around the corners and everything. But it works. All the videos that I've watched on how to do a pond, they all recommend that you get into the pond and you can make sure that the bottom of the pond is as smooth as possible, and then pull up on the sides to pull them. And then we lined it with rock. Actually, this is Kasota stone, I guess.
It is.
That
we had a patio out of one time.
Yeah, and pieces that we've picked up over the years. We had some friends that used to live out on the prairie there, and they let us come out and pick up a bunch of their stones.
And now the pump, let's talk a little bit about that.
The pump, the recirculating pump, is rated, I think, at around 380 gallons per hour.
And that's great plenty.
And that's a great plenty for a pond this size in the waterfall or water that we wanted to pump through it. That comes in, you can buy pumps in all sorts of sizes, from probably down to 100 gallons per hour up to, 1,000, I would imagine, yes.
So, and we have to talk about how we have our rainwater that drains in here as well.
We have eaves on this addition back here, and that water runs into the pond. And then we also have an overflow on the back corner, so that it's supposed to, if the water gets too high, it will run out, and that also feeds into the garden. So
there's a really nice corrugated hose back there, so I can move that around to put it in the garden so that it will easily get dispersed out there. So it's a great way of saving water again. And this is just working really, really well for us. The old pump was a gift too, and so the water is pumped up through there, drops down, and then is recirculated. It keeps going. And this is not very expensive to run, is it?
No, the pump runs pretty cheap. I don't know what the power rating is on it, but we figured it out, and we probably have, because I did all the labor on it. Right. So we have less than $200 invested in the liner, the pump, and some of the other materials that I had to buy to do it.
Now, next spring, because this is September now, next spring we'll buy some fish to put in here, some koi, and we will also put in some water plants. And I already have some of those water plants. Now, I'm thinking of yellow flag and purple flag, and then that'll blend it all in together. We'll probably tweak the landscaping a little bit more too. But we're really happy for $200, lots of sweat and hard work. It's a great project. So we're going to go look at another pond, and this one was done commercially. So join us at Karen Wright's home. Until next time, this is Barb Lamson along with
Dave Lamson,
wishing you happy gardening.
Hi, I'm Karen Wright, Minnesota River Valley Master Gardener. Welcome to my pond. I love this pond. It's just a place of solace, peace. The water running is just beautiful. It's a pond and a waterfall. So you saw my friend Barb Lamson. She had a smaller one. Well, this one I didn't put in myself. This whole area used to be a big grassy hill. That's all it was, grass with one sickly looking oak tree on it. And then I said to my husband, let's do something. Could we put it in a pond? And he said, well, what would that entail? So I checked into a company, and I actually hired a company to do it because we also had a patio built as well and a door added to the basement, so it was a walkout basement. So something like this, a pond like this, would be probably about $10,000. So we're talking, and ponds can go up to a lot more than that. But this is about a 1,000-gallon pond, so it generates. The water basically goes from the biofalls all the way through the pump in the end and recirculates basically 24 hours a day. We don't use it in the winter because it freezes, and it's not really big enough to keep it going all year long. So this is essentially spring to fall venture. And when you do a pond like this, you want to integrate it into the landscape. In this case, I was able to do that because we have this hill, and if it hadn't been for the hill, the slope, we wouldn't have been able to do the waterfall because it wouldn't have looked natural. This way it's natural. It looks like it's coming out of the back of the hillside, and I've integrated it into the backyard to just be a beautiful place where I can just enjoy. I've got koi fish in here, and to have fish, you have to have a pond that's at least 24 inches deep. So my koi in the winter, they come inside in a big 55-gallon tank. I was going to talk about some of the things it takes to have a pond. First of all, you need a sunny spot. In general, maybe some dappled shade, but in general, you don't want a lot of trees around where the leaves are going to fill it up because it'll be a mess and you'll have a lot to deal with. You'll also have to have an electrical supply nearby to run a pond because the pump, like I said, goes 24 hours a day. You need a flexible liner, which we had the pond company put in, and they can last up to 20 years or more. This one was built in about 2004. The maintenance cost on this is getting more each year. Like I said, initial cost was about $10,000. In the spring, I have the pond company come in, and what they do is called open up your pond in the spring, and they clean it out really good. They get any debris out of the bottom, and then they fill it up with water, make sure there's no leaks, and they will put special bacteria in your biofalls, and that bacteria goes on the rocks, and then the bacteria eats all the kind of the crud that gets in there from the fish. And the first year I had such a terrible problem with it's called string algae, and you can see now there's hardly, well, I can find barely any. There's just a teeny bit of algae here. But my first year, the whole pond was a green slushy pit of string algae, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, I didn't have any plants. I'd like to talk about those and some of the plants I've got on my pond. And in general, you need 40 to 60% coverage of a pond with plants to have a successful ecosystem. And the first thing I had in here was what's called sweet flag. This is variegated sweet flag, and it goes into the bottom of the pond, and it provides good oxygenation for the fish in the pond, as of course that's why you have to have the constant movement is to keep it oxygenated, or it would become a slimy old mess. So very important. And this is called water hyacinth. And water hyacinth, as you see, have a nice deep, big hairy root system. And not only is this good for keep taking up the nutrients, the fish debris, the fish waste I should say, it also provides a little hiding place for the fish, which is important from the heat of the day, and also from critters. I had in the past, when I first started and didn't have any plants in here covering it, we had a giant blue heron that came in, and I looked to the back of the yard. All of a sudden there's this 4-foot bird, and I said, what is he doing? He took my big koi fish. And the first koi I bought was a lot more. It was like 25 bucks for a koi, and I thought, I can't have this. So now we buy smaller koi and let them grow because they're kind of expensive. But I do like them. And in the fall, when migration comes, we put a big net over top to protect the fish from the birds. Some people have problems with raccoons. I haven't, knock on plants, had that problem yet, and hopefully we don't. But I'm just say that the plants are a key piece, and incorporating the plants around the outside so it makes it feel like it's part of your environment, which I've really tried to do over the years. And it's taken a long time. The maintenance has become more and more each year as my pond has grown older. As I said, we have the pond company come in the spring to start it up, and it's about $200 to do that. But I've had some leaks, the liner has started to pull a little away from the edges, and so there's been some sinkage a little bit. So this year it cost me over $1,000 to have the maintenance done, and it seems each year it's a little more. So unless you're ready to do maintenance and keep it up, a pond's not for you. Otherwise, a pond is awesome if you don't mind doing a little bit of work. One of the important parts of the pond, of course, is the pump, and really you should talk with someone who's an expert about knowing how big of a pump that you need, because if you have a bigger pond, more water, you're going to need a bigger pump. And if you have a waterfall, you're going to need even more energy for the pump to go. So this is where the pump is, in the bottom of the pond. And there's also a filter that filters out some stuff in there, like, as you'll see, that looks kind of gross and gooey. has some leaves and other debris in there. I'm just going to dump it over here for now. And the other important piece in here, I don't know if you get down here, there is, it looks all gross and grimy, there is a filter down here that filters stuff through the pond, grime, gross, dirt, but in here are healthy bacteria, bacteria that provide a healthy mix to eat dirt and other things in the water that you don't want. So that is a really key piece of having a successful ecosystem in your pond. So this just gets the big stuff out, whether it's a plant or leaf or ball or something that falls that the kids are playing with. And I have had to replace my pump once every 2 years. They're kind of expensive. They're about $250 each for these pumps. And so it's kind of frustrating because they really don't last that long. But you know what? It's part of being a pond owner and part of something you just have to say, guess what? I got to get a new pump this year that didn't work. So you can expect a pump, I think, to last 2 to 4 years and not much more. I am now at the top of the biofalls. The biofalls is where the water is pushed from the pump and circulates around and goes down the waterfall into the pond below. And this is, of course, another important part of the pond if you've got a waterfall, is the biofalls. And bio, of course, means life. And in here are a whole bunch of, you can't see them, they're in this big netting, but there are a lot of lava rock. I can't really see them, but the lava rock have a lot of surface area because, of course, they're very porous, and that allows, again, beneficial bacteria in your pond that is required to maintain clear and healthy water. If you don't have some of these things in balance, that's when you get the slimy, icky water, and that's probably, like I said, the biggest thing you might have to figure out is how to get that balance. It took me a few years, really, to figure out how to make it so I didn't have the slime anymore, and the number of things was plants and just making sure to have the pond cleaned out very well in the beginning of the season. So just some things to note. It is a lot of maintenance, a lot of work, but it's a lot of joy. So I hope you can enjoy having your own pond in the backyard. If it's a big one, probably want to have somebody else do it for you. Well, if you want your own water feature and you don't mind quite a bit of work and maybe spending a little money, and a pond might be the right thing for you. I'm Karen Wright with the Minnesota River Valley Master Gardeners. Happy gardening.